Hello everyone, welcome back. Let me make sure everything is set up correctly. Hey, okay, I guess we are live now. Hello, welcome back. I brought out my mic, so hopefully the audio is a lot better and a little bit clearer. Let me know if you guys are hearing it okay. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about mental health, mental health for the artist. Um, I like to do panels that are a little bit more conversational, a little bit more uh, informal, especially with a topic like this. I want to go over a couple of issues that I've heard come up over and over again. And, I'd also like to talk about issues that maybe some of you guys are facing in terms of mental health, in terms of your own artwork, self-worth, creativity, all of that kind of gets mushed together. Um, I do want to preface this though, that whatever we talk about in here, because mental health is such a broad subject, that not to take everything too literally, just in case, you know? I'm not sure. I always want to be really careful when it comes to things that really affect people's lives. If you personally feel like your mental health is not great and actually severely impacting your life, I would actually recommend seeing a doctor, or I think it's a psychiatrist or therapist about it, because I have friends whose brains just don't produce the right amount of, I don't know if it's the neurotransmitters or something, but it's not always just a mental thing. Sometimes it's a physical thing, and medicine helps a lot. I'm just putting that out there. I have one friend who had extreme anxiety, and we always thought that it was because of art and everything, and it was literally, her brain was missing something. Yes, when your brain broke, you got to take the meds. And it was only after the meds that she realized how much was actually affecting her. And I highly approve or highly support everyone who feels like their mental health is actually affecting their life quality to hopefully, find a professional, find someone who is trained and who is a doctor in their field to actually help you out, because medication is very, very important for people's brains who don't work properly. um yes, I just want to put that out there, because you could come away from this feeling great, but sometimes if you gotta take meds, you just gotta take meds, and meds are great. Okay, so moving on. uh There are two topics that I'd like to talk about. One, burnout. Burnout is a huge issue, especially for artists. Burnout, and I think, feel free to chime in as well if you guys want me to talk about something specific. But I was thinking burnout and possibly like separating yourself from your art emotionally, like not putting your self-worth into your art. That I think is a huge issue with a ton of people, especially artists in college. Yes, self-doubt and imposter syndrome, that all goes into it. That all goes into your self-worth, your general view on yourself. Okay, so artist block. A lot of people in the chat are talking about self-doubt and imposter syndrome. We can start with that if you guys want, because this is an open conversation. Yeah, because self-doubt segues directly into artist block sometimes. And also with so much social media, right? You have so many people now putting numbers to their self-worth. This happens a lot too when I see artists. In my first conversation, I was talking about branding and pricing yourself. And I've seen this already, but I saw even more just by the people talking that people for some reason like to put a value number on their own art. And when you talk about pricing and selling, it for some reason becomes correlated with the artist. And if they're worth that price or if they're worth that amount of money. And that is not a good mindset to have. Right? It's really not. Let me make sure I'm seeing all of these. Yes, numbers are a lie and guilt. And there are people who tell me, "Oh, I don't want to charge that much. That's too much." Like when I brought up that I think the minimum that everyone should be charging for a print is $10. And people were like, "No, no, 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 no. I don't think so. That's too expensive. Um I don't think it's worth that much." And I had a good chat with a friend afterwards, and I was literally like, people pay $5 for a coffee. Why would they not pay $10 for your art? So for people who weren't in the beginning chat, I was talking about minimum small prints, $10. Large prints, way more. For people who are just starting out, my brace prices are a lot different, for sure. Because the last chat was just about people beginning. Let's see. Yeah, so people also feel guilty for not drawing all the time. This was something that I yes, for people confused, I am talking about prints, not original pieces. I'm talking about when you sell at a convention and you have a stack of 5x7s and people are selling them for $5 instead of $10. Um, we will definitely get into comparing yourself as an artist. So one of the things that I felt very strongly when I was in college was this idea that if I was not drawing 24/7, I was somehow a failure of an artist. No one directly said this to me. This is something that everyone picks up for some reason. Everyone picks this up. Whether it be in college, whether it be in like online, especially when like people are telling you like, "Oh, you need to draw to improve. You really need to draw to improve." I don't think so. I really don't think so. What's gonna make you improve is drawing with intention. Just because you draw 100 days in a row doesn't mean you're gonna get better. You're probably still drawing the same shit 100 days in a row. And so it's not good to it's not good to it's like this idea of quantitating your work, where people aren't used to, or it's not easy to separate it, right? um Sorry, I'm just double checking all the chats because you guys are definitely giving some great comments as well. Yes, and so someone also said that I think it's society's stigma when it comes to artists being seen as not a real job, so we end up feeling guilty. I really agree with that. And I also think there's also that stereotype that artists have to struggle to create. It's very weird, right? Because we've all heard that, the struggling artist. It's literally a term. Um and it took me so long to realize that because I was kind of in that mindset, I struggled a lot more than I needed to. And that's not okay. And that's the environment that people are getting into. And yes, some people thrive in it, right? Like there were times where I still thrived in that environment, right? I felt on top of the world. I could do anything because I was a struggling artist, you know? I don't know. It was like very powerful for me. And but then you get a lot of highs and you get a lot of lows. And when you have a lot of highs and your crash is really, really low, that's not okay. That's not good. It's so hard on yourself to do that, right? I have friends who maybe they didn't crash until a couple years later of being on that high for so long. But then when they crashed, they didn't want to draw at all for years. They were done with it. Right? And that's what we kind of want to avoid. That's not a healthy relationship with your art. That's not a healthy relationship with creativity. That's not giving yourself respect and time and just general healing time, right? Um yes, artist guilt and self-doubt absolutely um feeds into one another. So this was something that I was taught uh later on after I got out of college. I think I should give you guys some background that at my very worst in college, I was forgetting to eat meals. I was forgetting to do general hygiene. I was forgetting to do a lot of things because I was so immersed in what I was doing. I was just trying to be the very best. I was trying to do so much. I was taking on so much pressure that honestly, I don't think it was really worth it. And I ended up actually passing out in my senior year. Like full on, I was at a friend's apartment because I couldn't even go home because I was so like, I gotta work, right? I passed out in the friend's apartment and I was just stopping by to just refresh a little bit. Um, and I passed out where I just literally walked in and I went like that on the floor. I had like a giant rug burn right here because I just like fell straight on, and it was not good. And that was an eye opener for me, right? Because then I actually got physically hurt because of how I treated myself. And for me, I don't know if it's a blessing or a bad thing. When I'm not in a good mental health or when I'm not in a good mindset, my body is the first thing to go. So I actually get really sick easily. I am prone to passing out if I am really not like taking care of myself. And so because of that, I have physical signs when I really need to do better. Some people don't have that, and that can be very dangerous, right? Like I am thankful for it, yet also it's hard when it happens. Like when I passed out, it took a long time to recover. Um, and some people though don't have those signs or they don't recognize their bodies are telling you the signs, but they don't think that it's the sign. That's also very possible. And then they don't register that until it's to the point where they've done this for 2 years and now they've given up and they don't ever want to touch drawing anymore. The worst thing in their life because they have all this negative association with it. It makes them feel like shit. We don't want to get to that point. It's very hard to get out of that once you're at that point. I think it's possible, but everything that has to do with mental health has to do also with your own willpower of wanting to make it better, wanting to make sure that you're not doing this, to make sure that you're checking yourself, you're balancing yourself, you're making sure that you're having a healthy relationship with your art rather than letting it consume you. We don't want the art to control us. We want to be able to have a really nice balance with your art, using it to make you money, using it to make you happy, but then also loving yourself outside of it and not correlating it with it, right? I think one of the bigger problems also is when you have a passion, when you have a talent, it becomes your identity. And it's good in some cases. It was a really strong identity when I didn't know who I was when I was younger. I was like, I'm an artist. This is me. This is who I am. And I didn't want to lose that because for some reason I felt like if I lose the title of I'm an artist, what am I? But it's not true about that at all. You are still you. You are never not going to be you. You exist, period. You are there. There's nothing that takes away from it just because you need a break from drawing or you need to rest up and live your life for a little bit, right? People are telling me that they feel guilty about not drawing. Me too. I felt guilty for so long about not drawing because one, I was unhappy with where I was. I thought that I needed things like a nice job. I thought I needed things like a fancy title to tell me that I was worth it. That everything that I struggled for was worth it for those titles. And it's not really worth it. Okay? When you get that job, it's just a job. You won't actually feel self-validated. As sad as that sounds, a lot of people are like this when they finally get that job that they've been reaching for, or they finally get into being an artist. It's not like anything changed. You just have a job now. And your mental health and relationship with yourself is still shit. And so it's not good because we don't want to keep entertaining that idea that your self-worth is correlated to your artistic skill or is correlated to your job title or that it's correlated to how much you draw because it's not. It's really not, right? It's we are humans at the core and we have to be kind to ourselves too. We're creating. We are pulling from a goblet of creativity within ourselves. I was watching this was a talk a long time ago. I think it was Chris Oatley. It was one of his podcasts and he had brought on two art directors from Nickelodeon, two lady art directors. They're really well spoken and I watched this at the perfect time that I needed to because they were basically saying as artists we observe the entire world around us, right? As artists, we are absorbing everything around us. And what we don't realize is that we are also absorbing like positive energy, negative energy, what we surround ourselves with, what we're looking on Instagram, our friends. If you have friends that aren't supportive or keep enabling you to be in that negative state because art is suffering, that's not okay because then it does get absorbed into you. It gets absorbed into your art. It gets absorbed into everything you put out. And we need to be conscious about what we're actually absorbing, what we're taking in. You know, as artists, we are just usually we absorb emotional feelings as well. And that's what we put out into the artwork. You know, when you really love something, that's what you're drawing. When you have a really strong story you want to tell, that's what you're putting into words. And so we want to make sure that we have a healthy bonus with or we have a healthy connection with that in order to not drag us down like that too, because I'm pretty sure everyone's noticed when they're feeling like shit, their art is shit, right? There's some some cases where maybe your art suddenly gets better when you're in a mood. That's happened too. But generally, when you're feeling like shit, it, your art's gonna be shit. You're not into it. You're you're doubting yourself. You're erasing every single line. You have this critique stream in your head going already that whatever you put out's gonna be shit. And because of that, whatever you put out is going to be shit. You've already thought of it. You've already set that goal in your head that, oh, this, whatever you put out. And that's when people struggle. That's when people start to even hit burnout, hit art blocks, because then they're so scared to start again because everything in their head is telling them that they can't do it. And we don't want to do that. Yeah, someone's saying, in my experience, the negativity in life doesn't create good art while you're in that negativity. Yeah, the only thing I've really seen be successful when you're in that negative state is other people also enabling that negative state, and they're all like, wow, I feel this is great. And then everyone's in that cycle of suffering is art, and it's a bad cycle. It's different if you're drawing to recognize your feelings. It's different if you're drawing to really work through your feelings, because that's actually you trying to get out of that headspace, right? But I'm talking about people who are comfy being negative, are comfy being in that negative headspace because it has now become something that they associate with their art, or it's something that they associate with who they are as a person because it's so consistent now. I know that when someone's talking about uh, uh, depression, people enjoy being depressed. Like, that's actually an issue, is people revert back to what's safe. And so people are asking, how do you balance your mental health then? And then how do you not burn yourself out? So the only way that I've found that works for me, if I'm burnt out, if I'm really struggling to create, stop creating. It's very different, like, in when you're at work though and you have deadlines, and so you have to just push it out as much as you can. But after you've hit those deadlines, you need to take a break. You need to let yourself rest. Okay? It's we have to go back to the whole guilt of artists having guilt for resting, artists having guilt for not drawing all the time. Working in animation, you are a storyteller, right? Everything visual is storytelling to a degree. So when you are storytelling, what are you drawing from? You're drawing from your heart. You're drawing from your life experiences. How can you have life experiences if you're drawing all the time? It don't work that way. Of course you're gonna burn out. Of course you're gonna end up pulling too much from your goblet of creativity. It makes sense logically, right? That you can't just keep pulling from something without refilling it. And what we're trying to avoid is so many cases where people just burn out for a really long time, right? Check this real quick. So for people are asking, right, like, resting, what exactly does that mean, resting? And also, how do you then hopefully get back into a better mindset with your art? So say, for example, when I burned out, I burned out when I moved to LA. I burned out for literally 6 months. I didn't want to draw. I was really struggling with who I was even as a person, because I had captivated so much of that into my self-worth that my drawing skills were equal to my self-worth. And when I could not draw at the level that I thought I was at, it really hurt. It really hurt me, right? And I was trying everything. I was like trying to take classes. I was copying people that I really liked their drawings, but then I felt like an imposter. I felt like I'm only drawing this because they've shown me how to draw it, and it's all bad. It's all a bad relationship with you, right? And so when you're in that, the ideal situation is to stop, reset. You must reset everything because you're in too deep now. You're in too deep in your own head. We don't want to be so deep into our own head that we can't even tell what's the truth from what we're thinking, right? And so when you burn out, if you can, take a week off. If it's possible, take a week off. I know it's really hard for people who are in school and for people who do have jobs that are related to the profession, but I've had talks with my art directors. I've had talks with my bosses where I go, "Hey, I'm having a really hard week. I need to lessen my load. If we could just lessen my load a little bit, I think it'll really help." And I've never had anyone tell me, "Lessen your load." Of course not. You are expected to do this. No, everyone's super like supportive of it. Everyone has been like, "Okay, well, it's say like if it's this deadline, maybe we could push that and hopefully that takes a little bit off your load." That's but a lot of artists don't even communicate that, right? So we want to try to start recognizing when you need to take a break, being vocal about when you need to take a break, actually taking a break. Like literally take a break. Don't go on Instagram. Don't go on Facebook. Don't go on YouTube. Like you're just going to make yourself feel worse if something comes up that triggers that self-worth issue, right? And if someone's in the comments saying that their art professor doesn't do that, school deadlines can be a little tricky. Hopefully, you can just push until the end of those deadlines because the nice thing about school though is that you have longer breaks, right? You get summers, you get well, unless you're doing extra classes, but generally you get a couple of more breaks, right? And and doing that, hopefully you can take a week or 2 weeks to refresh yourself or to do something you really love, like do something outside of art, right? In school, when I had a really bad week, I would just take the weekend if I could, hopefully, and just go somewhere, go outside, do something that's not related to art, has nothing to do with art. Figure out if you have hobbies outside of art, like do something like that. Try to get yourself out of that mind space. Forget about art. Play that game that you really want to play. Go watch the movies that you really want to watch because you need to feel happy. You need to feel like you enjoy life again. And someone's asking in the chat, like what happens if you you have professor or you have a boss that does not care while you are in burnout. The thing with the professor is hopefully hopefully you could just hit that deadline, maybe not take that class anymore. Find a professor who actually, because if it's just putting out work that has a deadline, that's doable, but you need to get past that and then take care of yourself, right? Because we're doing this so that in the future, when you run into situations, you won't even be close to burning out. We're trying to do this so that we can manage everything so that you don't burn out. You don't have to take long weeks off. You don't have to recenter yourself, right? We're doing this so that you have a good balance with yourself. And I know it's hard for everyone to figure this out, but it's hopefully something that you can do. And with that, when you come back to it, take it in lighter steps. Take it in like I've noticed that every time I've done like a week off where I just refresh, relax, do something else. When I come back to my artwork, I have a way better, like fresh eyes on it because I haven't been thinking about it for a long time. for people asking if it's not possible because you have bills and rent, that is very important too, right? Because we don't want to go where we're in the financial negatives. Um, and this is going to be very much based on your situation. And unfortunately, if you cannot do it right now, hopefully you can create a space or save up a little bit where you would be able to create that rest space for yourself. Or maybe start taking weekends off. If you're not taking weekends off, I don't I just don't think that's good, right? We don't want to get trapped in a job also that's making you work 24/7 and making you work 7 days a week. We want to elevate ourselves to where we are also valued as an artist and our time, because all of this is important. I would hope that eventually everyone can get into jobs and positions where you are actually valued as a human being. Um, a lot of people feel bad that, or people feel very appreciative that they're already in art and that they're already in the industry. And so they feel like they have to keep it going and do all the work that's being told for them to do. When I guarantee you there's a way out of it, because that was me too. I was working 7 days a week. I was teaching Saturdays and Sundays. I was doing freelance on the side. I did not give myself a break because I, first of all, needed money. Second of all, thought that my self-worth was based off of everything that I did. I cannot help directly if, I cannot help you directly on certain situations, and hopefully at least this will give you a plan to, when you are in that position where you can either like make weekends for yourself or start to really take time for yourself, or even doing something else after work, right? That's the most important. People are asking if I can leave this video up. I am leaving this video. I'm also recording all of my talks and gonna post them on YouTube. They will be on my YouTube account, which is Amber Aki Huang. That way, I don't know how it works on Twitch because it's pretty new for me, but I've heard that things sometimes go off or that people have to be a subscriber, whatever. It'll be on YouTube. All of this is gonna be free. This is information that I think that everyone needs to hear. And so hopefully, after resting and doing that, you can have a better relationship with your art. If you are finding that you are struggling with finding people who are supportive, if you don't have parents, if you don't have friends who understand it, we are now in the age of social media, of Instagram. Hopefully you can start to curate a group that thinks like you, that will motivate you, that will not drag you down. One of the worst things that I think I experienced in college and when I first moved out to LA is people that were very superficial, that would always compare other artists to other artists. Like, it's a very bad thing to do that, right? Like, would compare and talk badly of other artists, or would pull other artists down because their artwork wasn't great. Like, I would be in groups where literally we would talk about a student that was like in our class, and they'd be like, oh, she's not getting anywhere, her work's absolute shit. And it's such a bad thing to do. It's such a bad mindset to have, right? You don't, that's not okay. We don't want friends like that. We don't want friends who think they're above everyone else just because right now their skill level is good, right? Everyone has their own path. Everyone has their own way of gaining their skill level. If people judged me on my skill level when I was in college, I don't know how I would have done anything. I wasn't at the skill level that I'm at now. I wasn't at the skill level where I could properly be a professional. It's the truth. It's everyone has their own pathway, right? And that type of stuff, the quicker you can get out of it, the quicker you can stop realizing when people are being extremely toxic, the faster you can start to cultivate friendships that strongly support you and will also tell you when you're not doing something right. That was something that I didn't really realize until I met my best friend in college, and they were like, they were very honest with me when they'd be like, I see what you're trying to do here, but your coloring's kind of shit. So if you maybe did this, it might be better. And they were right about that, right? But they were friends. So it's no longer tearing it down. They're not tearing someone down. They're all trying to build you up to be a better artist, right? And you also have to be able to take that criticism, that to know that your self-worth is not related to your art. Because I think when you hang around people who strongly correlate that your self-worth is related to your art, you get the competition, you get the bickering, you get the gossiping behind people's back. Because that's a way for people to feel powerful. That's a way for people to feel like they rule the room. That's a way for people to feel better about just them. And we don't want to do that because it's not good. It's not great. And what always ends up happening is people will also talk about each other. Those friends will also talk about you. Those friends are quick to judge and quick to drop you if they feel like you aren't worth it anymore. And we don't want that. So someone asks, Aki, how did you transition from having art as your identity to being able to separate it from you as a person? This is not a quick fix. You know, everything I'm telling you, you guys, I think most of you guys know this somewhere deep in your heart, right? You guys know this. It is not easy to separate yourself after doing this for so long. It is not easy at all. What we're trying to do, though, is start on the pathway to separating it. It may take you 6 months. It may take you a year. It may take you a couple of years. But the thing is that we have to start trying. We have to start trying to separate ourselves. We have to trying to have a good balance with ourselves. I don't stare at the mirror anymore and go, you're a shit artist, you know? I don't draw something terrible and go, and like get really depressed about it. When I draw something terrible now, I go, okay, it's not my day. Okay, cool. And I leave it. And that's very hard to do. It took me such a long time to just be like, oh, well, you know, everyone has their shit days. And literally every artist has their shit days. Not a single artist has not had a shit day. Every artist has a shit day. So we need to remember that, and remember that when we recultivate that love and that passion for creating, the fact that we enjoy this, we're doing this because it's fun, we're doing this because it's something you're good at, we're doing this because it helps you make money without feeling like you're suffering. That's why we do this, right? And so we want to try to cultivate that and get to that point where we also are proud of our growth. Because I'm sure all of you, no matter where you are on your journey, if you start staring at where you grew when you first started, you've done a lot. You've grown a lot. Maybe you can't see it when you're just face down in your art right now. But that's also one way that I started to separate comparing myself to others. I started to separate feeling like shit about my art is because I started to really take a look at where I was a year ago, where I was 2 years ago. And I started relating things to myself. I started relating things to like, okay, I was really good at line art maybe this year, but I really want to get better at coloring because I think that'll just make everything so much nicer. And now I actually can focus on like, yeah, I can color. Oh, if I do this, if I learn this on coloring, then I could help elevate my art versus being like, oh, this artist is really good. I could never get to their level. Everything they put out is great, because you're not looking at it in steps anymore. You're looking at it as a whole. And everything happens in steps. Nothing happens where you wake up suddenly and you are amazing. Okay? Not never happened like that. Right? Yes. And someone saying in here, a good psychologist can really help you, especially if you don't have a good support circle. I think everyone can benefit with therapy. I think everyone can benefit from, if you cannot get supportive friends and family, and you have the means to access a therapist or a psychologist, I would highly recommend it. I think it helps everyone. If you do not have the financial situations though, because therapy and psychiatrists can be a little pricey if we're not exactly at a stable moment, I hope that you guys would be able to meet others online, because at least that's free, right? It does take a little searching. Hopefully you can find the people. You can be in Discord chats. You can, find people who are supportive. And I think once you start to look out for having friends that actually support you and having friends that aren't going to tear you down, you'll be able to see very, very quickly, like, who the toxic friends are and who the good friends are, right? And there's so much you have to work on that I can't even get into. But even when you have good friends though, I run into the problem, and my friends have run into this problem, where our little bit of self-worth and negativity will come creeping back in. And that's when you have to be honest with your friends. You have to be honest with your support group, right? And I highly recommend that it's not just one person. It's a lot to have all of your support group just be one person. Hopefully you can start to cultivate groups that you're just comfortable with, people that really are just trying to be better, because I promise you there are so many people like that. There are so many people I've met that are just trying to get better and trying to have a community with everyone that want a community. I have a community of like, when I did conventions, we have merch artists that come together, share ideas, share events, and we're all just like, that's amazing, that's wonderful, go for it, right? But hopefully when you get to, a state where you are with supportive friends who are possibly artists as well, you can have open and honest and sometimes hard conversations. Because if we're talking about, like, stepping away from stepping away from comparing yourself to other people, stepping away from comparing yourself to other artists, like artwork coming out, and professionals, and looking inwardly to where you were before in your art path, you may run into the same problems where, okay, you're trying your best, you've done it really well, you have artist friends, one of them suddenly gets really popular. This always comes up for some reason. And the feeling of jealousy comes in, or the feeling of, oh, I want that comes in, right? It's a it's such a bad feeling. It's such a, because now you have friends who are supportive. You are confident in your art to a certain amount, but suddenly you've been thrown this curveball where you're like, I don't want to be jealous of your friends. I don't want to be jealous of someone being successful, because most likely if you have artist group, one of them's going to be successful and they may be very successful. And you now have to face another issue within yourself where it's hard to be supportive of other people doing what you want. And that's where conversations and opening it up with your friends really helps. I've told my friends before that I've felt bad because I suddenly, and this is not a logical thing, it is an emotional thing, where you suddenly don't want to see their stuff. You don't want to see it because they suddenly have a huge amount of followers, right? And that's where it's actually, if you have a really good balance and you've kind of started to realize your mental state, it's good to talk to your friends about it. It's good to talk to the friend who's popular. And I did talk to the friend who's popular. I was like, hey, this isn't, I realize it's nothing against you personally. For some reason, I'm struggling with this, and unfortunately, I feel jealous and I feel this negativity. And being able to talk about it actually helps you figure out your own feelings. And lo and behold, when I talked to the friend who was extremely popular about it, she was like, dude, I felt this way about you. Or I felt this way about like when you were being successful, when she was at her lowest and stuff like that. It's not a one-way street. You know, it's a lot of people have the same thoughts. And being able to talk about it suddenly is like a release because then you guys have all talked about it and been like, yo, we have the same feelings. It's a shit feeling, but we all have the same feeling. And then it gets better because it's just like you suddenly realize that everyone kind of has the same feelings as you. And when you're feeling it, you can now tell your friends, hey, I'm feeling it. I don't know why. And they could be like, no, you've done so well. You know, your artwork's been great. You know, you're doing so well. You should be very proud of yourself. And that's kind of what I'm hoping that everyone can start to cultivate for themselves and having friends that are supportive and having, you know, that community that's got your back. Because I think with that, that's how artists really thrive. Everyone who is successful has people who are supporting them. I don't know any big artist or successful in that term. I think if you're already happy with your art, that's success. But you know, in general terms of success that most social media uses, I don't know a single big artist who doesn't have great friends supporting them, who doesn't have a community behind them supporting them. Art is not a lone wolf thing, and even lone wolves have friends, you know? Like even like high-end painters who do their stuff in the studio have tons of friends that they talk to about painting and like other gallery shows and all that time. Um okay, what if you doubt people when they compliment you? I feel like they are lying or just saying it out of courtesy rather than being sincere. That is not, that's an internal thing. That is something that everyone has to work on. I know that me personally, I was really good at deflecting compliments. And it took me a long time to get out of it. Where someone would go, hey, that's a really good drawing. And I'd be like, it's not my best. It's not great. It's whatever. Right? And I think definitely it was because my self-worth was still attached to my artistic skill. And not only will, you know, when you start to detach it and started working on that, I think it'll help. But also, when someone gives you a compliment, for a while, I just said thank you. I just took it. Even if I didn't feel like it meant anything, I just went thank you. Or or I tried to find ways to accept it within myself because when you're in that negative mindset, everything around you seems negative, right? When you're looking for someone to validate your negativeness, you're gonna find it because you're looking for it. So we're trying not to continue on at that point. Someone saying like basically by insulting your own art, you're insulting the taste of the person who complimented you and discouraging people who look up to you. Yeah. So also when you say that about your stuff, it does affect the people who like your work, or it does affect the people who maybe are at a skill level lower than you, right? Because you may not know it, but you are someone that they look up to, or you are someone that they are watching out for. And so being able to take a compliment um, will really help in that ways. There's no easy way about it. Everything I've said takes time. It takes a conscious mind to say, I really want to get to a place where I am happy with my art, not because of skill level, but because I enjoy this process because it is something that I have now surrounded with a ton of positivity. Um um yes, and if you need people to talk to, or if you need professional help, I'm always for professional help. If your mental state is affecting your quality of life, you need to talk to someone. I don't even care if they say later on that you're okay. We need to double check that you're actually okay and that you have a professional say that, you know, you have some things to work on, or maybe medication would help. I am a huge supporter of medication, anxiety medication, depression medication. It works. Some people's brains just don't work the same, okay? And that's why medication really helps. I'm always going to say that. Um, um, I'm glad that you guys are enjoying the cat too. Okay, so how do you stop needing validation for your artwork and or the effort you put into it? That also falls into self-confidence, because if you need validation for your art, it usually stems from insecurities, right? It usually stems from not knowing your value. This is a general talk because not everyone's the same. So I hope everyone can take a little bit of what works for them and reflect it onto their life. But for the most part, when I needed validation and asked for it, I would get validation, but that high does not last. It's the same thing as when I said before, when I just wanted the job for the title, or I just wanted a job so that I would feel like I was successful. And then I got the job. And I did momentarily feel like, yes, this is it. I've done it. This is me, right? But because I'm still in cahoots with my bad mentality and my bad mindset, it did not last long. There were more things that I ended up worrying about, right? Because then I started worrying about, will they fire me? Will I ever be able to get another job after this? This may be my only job. That's bad. These are things that then, this is your brain making stress for yourself. This is your brain telling you that you don't deserve any of this. And that's why you go out seeking validation. And yes, validation really helps sometimes, but you cannot always rely on getting validated, because unfortunately your relationship with your mindset is still shit. And so it's going to drag you down. And someone's saying here, if we base our happiness on external conditions, we're screwed. I really agree with that, right? There's a type of avoidance. You don't have to avoid your issues when you look externally. People do this a lot outside of art too, right? Parents do this when they're unhappy with their life. They blame the kids. Parents do this when they're unhappy with where they ended up and they blame the husband or the wife. This is common mind practice, right? This is something that your mind is kind of trying to do to protect yourself, right? It's always easier to pretend like it's not your fault. It's always easier to pretend like it's not you. It's always easier to pretend like you don't have a shit mindset. But to be honest, sometimes you do have a shit mindset, and you gotta look into that, and you gotta fix it, and you gotta be honest with yourself. Yes, being able to accept outside circumstances and work on yourselves. That's absolutely correct. I think with that, yes, it's good to ask what you're saying to yourself. And I don't think most people realize how much negativity or how much criticism they're actually giving or putting onto themselves, right? Another thing that really helped was when I would look at my art, I would be ruthless. I would be absolutely ruthless. Or even if I looked at myself in the mirror, I'd be ruthless if I didn't like the way that I looked. Kind of correlates. Because it affects all certain areas of our life. And what I ended up finding out through friends was literally like, the things you say to yourself, you probably would never say to a friend, because it is mean and it is hurtful and they would cry. So why are you saying it to yourself? If you would never say that to someone you love about, then why are you doing it to yourself? Like, why are you putting yourself down all the time? You know, like, why can't you just treat yourself better? Why can't you respect yourself to that point where you go, okay, well, maybe this drawing isn't my best, but at least I drew today and at least I did my best. Next time it'll be better, right? And I think that mindset of trying to catch it and trying to switch it really helps. For people feeling imposter syndrome, I happened across a very fun like kind of mental state change explanation on Twitter the other day, where if you feel like you have imposter syndrome, why not switch it to be like you are I'm gonna say this wrong, but it's like, why not switch it? So instead of being an imposter syndrome, you are an exceptional bullshitter, right? You've bullshitted your way into a job. You've bullshitted your way into people paying you. I really like that kind of like aggressive validation of your skill if you can't see it yourself right now, right? Because imposter syndrome is really easy to get bogged down on, being like, I don't deserve this. I don't feel like I have anything worthwhile to talk about. I don't think I'm worth it. Versus if you say you're an exceptional bullshitter and you're like, wow, I don't even know what I'm talking about, but they all think I do. And that's amazing. I don't know what I'm doing, but they gave me a job. And it just kind of adds a little bit of humor too, right? You gotta take it easy a little bit. Um, to once you stop putting so much pressure on yourself, it really helps cultivate, that balance, that healthier relationship with your peers, with your art friends, with your family even. Um, Let me see. Yes, everyone feels like an imposter. Someone's saying that even Mark Hamill feels like an imposter. Yes, everyone feels like that, right? Because we know our version of ourselves. And for some reason, it's really daunting when we're trying to make people impressed, or we're trying to give a version of ourselves that um is a little bit different than what we're used to, but everyone feels that, sometimes my friends who are art directors are just like, I don't know, I just draw and they like it. I guess that's good. And if you have people who kind of talk like that, you then are just kind of like, oh, okay, why was I putting my like so much like pressure on myself? And also the thing with imposter syndrome, like, yeah, so you put your stuff out there. Say I have imposter syndrome for doing a talk, and maybe the talk didn't go so well, but then didn't I learn how to do a better talk? Didn't I learn how to present myself better? So it's not really an imposter syndrome. It's just growth. It's just you. You are literally just being you, right? Yes, progress rather than perfection is key. So if someone is saying that starving artists also means starving for self validation, yes, it's very easy to get everything mixed up at the same time. I think that once you have a much better relationship with yourself, with your art, a lot of the problems that you thought were problems will go away. A lot of the issues that were nagging you in the back of your head slowly disappear as well. Um, Let me see. Are there any other questions for things that I have not discussed that people would like me to talk about? I think I've talked about a lot of things already. I've talked about burnout. I've talked about separating yourself from your self-worth. I've talked about imposter syndrome. I've talked about supportive friends, therapy, get it, medicine, get it if you need it. Um Everyone wants to see the cat. Um, oh, mental health at working from home. Yes, that's actually very important right now. I don't I don't know where the cat is right now. It's a little nappy time probably for them. So since I don't have anything after this, if people have something to go to at 4 o'clock, feel free. I hope you guys had a really good time. If not, I'm just gonna continue the stream for just a little bit longer since I have the capacity. I have the nothing else to run to right now. Um, let me see. Okay, working from home. I had a really bad problem with working from home, even when I was doing freelance at home before I got an in studio job. And that was where I couldn't separate my workspace from my living space. And so I would cause myself unnecessary stress because where I relaxed was where I worked. And so I could never relax because it was where I worked. Right. And I think that it's always going to be dependent on your situation. It's going to be dependent on if you're living at home, if you're living with roommates, if you are in a small apartment, or if you're in possibly a apartment that has a spare room. I would separate your workspace from your relaxing area. A lot of people I know have their workspace in their bedroom, and to me that did not work. If you do, and maybe you can't change it right now, try to put up some blockers or something to block that space so that you don't have to stare at your work stuff. You don't have to stare at uh everything that you're stressing about because it unintentionally comes back to you. So separate your workspace to the best of your ability. I know it's really hard for some people right now, especially people who maybe aren't even in the creative industry but have lost their jobs, and financially there's not a lot coming in. But if you even just have like a dining room table, you could use that as your workspace instead of somewhere else that was a little closer to your relax area, right? um and another thing is having start and stop time. I am still guilty of this. So I am not a perfect example, but nobody is because we're all just trying to improve. But having a start and stop time, even a general one, helps, right? I was catching myself starting to work on weekends. I was catching myself starting to work until the middle of the night. And we don't want to overextend our work hours, even if say you're a student at home and you're trying to continue drawing while classes are kind of in limbo, or classes are just online right now. um Having a start and stop time is a huge help because one, when you have a start and stop time, you're giving your head, your brain, a mental check in and check out. That's also why it's important to remove your workspace from your relax area if possible, right? So when you have that check in and check out, as silly as it sounds, telling yourself, okay, I'm gonna start at 9 o'clock, and then I'm going to stop at 6 p.m. I'm not gonna do any other work after 6 p.m. That's really good because once 6 p.m. counts, maybe like, so you have like one assignment, you go, okay, I just finished that up. You finish that up, but you're done. You are done. You've worked your 8 hours. You've worked your whatever hours. You should relax. You should not continue to work just because you're in the zone. Being in the zone is deceptive. It's very deceptive. We like it so much when we're in the zone. But, as an artist, especially if you're constantly working on yourself, you should be able to draw outside of the zone and when you're in the zone. So not allowing yourself that start and stop time is detrimental to, like, in the future when now you've really worked yourself out of like wanting to do anything. You've really become really bogged down because not only is the world kind of going crazy, you yourself haven't been taking care of your schedule at home and everything's a mess. And for me, even though I'm working so much, for some reason when I don't have start and stop times, my assignments become late, or I procrastinate because I don't want to work, or I take too long on things. It's very weird, but having a start and stop time really helps you uh, get a better grasp on your time, get a better relationship with your art again. Um, okay, someone, hold on. I'm gonna read a couple of these comments because I think there's some really good ones in here. But I hope for the most part, those are my two big important tips for working from home is separate your workspace, start and stop time. Try to take care of yourself if you can, but that's a general thing. We should all always be trying to take care of ourselves when we can. Um, let me see. Okay, someone said, I think this is a very interesting topic. Someone, for some time now, I have been feeling like I am not really an artist since I haven't read or studied art as other people. Sometimes I wonder if being self-taught is still as good as someone who learned properly. If you draw, you are an artist. Period. There's no if or buts. If you draw, you are an artist. But if we're talking self-taught and schooling, there are benefits of both. There are huge benefits of both. I was self-taught until I took foundational classical training in Shanghai. Okay, so I was self-taught for a lot of like my sense of cute, my sense of characters, my sense of aesthetic, completely self-taught. I was super into anime. All I did was draw anime. And then I learned the foundations. There are benefits to both, okay? When you are taught by people who have already gone through everything you're going through and by people who are professionals in their industry, they help you with their shortcuts on how to get better quicker, okay? I don't think if there's a better or worse. There are plenty of people who I know that are self-taught, and there is nothing wrong or worse about their art versus someone who is trained in school. I think going to a class though can really help when you don't know what tools you have to work with, right? That's the hardest thing with being self-taught is that you aren't really sure what your arsenal is because none of the things you self-taught yourself have names. And you're not really sure the things that you're coloring or the things that you're doing exactly what are they, right? Um, everyone is self-taught at some point, exactly. Most of the really good people, they were self-taught. Some of them went to school, some of them did not go to school. In terms of general value as an artist, I do not think there is that much of a difference besides just if your skill level is good, you're good. So what if you're self-taught? That's amazing, right? I know tons of coworkers who didn't go to college or who went to college for engineering, went to college for something else, but they ended up self-teaching themselves how to draw because, well, they really liked it. And then they got a job without, needing to show that they went to an art school, not needing to show that they took all the training that artists are supposed to take. And whether it be a good thing or a bad thing, because there's pros and cons to this, when you apply as an artist, it's not really about your resume, like in terms of like what school you went to. It's really about your quality of work. It's a visual job. So if you draw well, people are gonna hire you. Um okay, here's someone. Someone asks, Aki, I really need to know this. How do you recover from being rejected by an art school you applied to? My self-esteem really went down after being rejected and really changed the way I see my art. How and the way I see my art, how my art doesn't prove my value. Okay, I was rejected so many times. I think I can't remember if I did this in this talk or when I was in the journey to becoming a character designer talk, but I told people that I applied to college and I have a lot of like mild chaos energy. So I tried applying to RISD, which at that time I was like, wow, it's really prestigious. It's a prestigious school. And they went, no anime. And I went, fuck that anime, and I put an anime in my portfolio and I got rejected because go figure, right? But and when I applied to uh Disney for internships, when I applied to DreamWorks for internships, when I applied to pick, I got rejected from every single one of them. And that can be a huge hit on your ego if you haven't properly been able to logically, like, separate yourself from uh your art worth versus your self-worth. I would say for you, if you're really feeling down because you've been rejected by this one art school, there is so much out there that you can learn from that I honestly think that is better, that maybe don't have that rejection gate, right? Schoolism is amazing. That's actually where I learned to be a character designer. That's where I learned that visual development was a thing. I did not learn that in school. I went to a good school. I went to Span College of Art and Design for Animation, but it did not teach me the things I needed to be taught, right? It taught me discipline. It taught me professionalism. It did not teach me the skill levels. I had to go search for that on my own, right? And so I think if you're really in a rut with yourself, you're not feeling confident, you've been rejected from whether it be a job position, whether it be an art school, whether it be your friends are shitting on you, not good, right? Let's try to. When I faced rejection, this is something that I think has helped. I take one day to feel my feels. I take one day to wallow in my self-pity. I take one day to just let myself cry. Okay? Because sometimes we need to cry. Sometimes we need to let it out. Sometimes we just gotta feel the feels. Because it has to come out somewhere. You can't just keep bottling it up inside, right? Or else it keeps staying with you. Like this empty, like this weight inside of you, right? So when I face rejection, I let myself feel it for one day. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if I'm not being logical, if I'm being really emotional. Doesn't matter. Let yourself have that one day. Let yourself have 2 days if you need it. But after those 1 or 2 days, you got to look at yourself in the mirror and go, I'm better than this. It's not me. I can do this. I can be better. I am better. Whatever happened there externally is not correlated to your value. And I try my very best to try to get out of that funk after that. After the first or second day, we ain't crying no more. We ain't doing this stuff. We're gonna do our best because we're amazing and we're gonna kill it. But we have to get past that first, right? And I hope that you will also be able to be honest with yourself. Cry about it for a day. Cry about it for 2 days. Think about what you actually wanted to go to that school for. Start making a plan. What is it actually that is your end goal, right? Because the school does not give you a job. It doesn't. A lot of people, for some reason, think that a school gives you a job because that's the narrative that they always tell us. School does not give you a job. You are able to get a job, but if you learn the right skill sets on your own. If you want to be a character designer, there's schoolism. There's, Steven Silver has his own classes. Aaron Blaze has his own classes. And, Peter Han has his own foundational classes. There's so much there. They also cost less than colleges. And you're learning from the best. We're not talking about just people in the industry. We're talking about the best, And so having the mindset to be able to then maybe set your goals and shift it a little bit, right? To reassess what it is that you're depressed about, what it is that you had hoped that the school would give you. Hopefully then you can find the confidence and the willpower to get back up again. Because I don't like someone telling me that I can't do something. That's something that comes with my mild chaos attitude, where if someone tells me, oh, you can't do that, I'm going to be like, oh, you bet, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it just because you said I can't, right? So if you have a little bit of that, take that energy. They rejected you, fuck them. Do better. You're going to do better. They would have been blessed to have you, right? So try to get it out, Try to Hold on, sorry. I am now checking a lot of the comments. Peter Han is not on schoolism. He runs his own classes right now. I think he was at CGMA. I'm not really sure right now, but he has his own courses. Working out of spite always works wonder. Yeah, it really does. If you have nothing else to go off of, fueling yourself out of spite is kind of fun, kind of good. And so far, I haven't had any bad negative experiences with that, because if you're fueling yourself to do better out of spite, sometimes you end up just being really aggressively positive about yourself, right? Because you have to, because you're angry. You gotta fuel that fire. You're the best artist in the world. Yeah, go with it. You are the best artist in the world. Why not? Let me see. Yeah, so everyone is having a really great conversation out there. Like I said before, everything is very broad, very general. There's nothing that you need to take exactly word for word. Try to just be more aware of your mental state. Hopefully some of these things are helpful for when you're dealing with the same things, or if it could help change your outlook on how to reassess your own mental state. Okay, because someone just brought this up. It's funny how some say follow your passion, but don't do anime. That was a huge issue with me in school. Anime is huge, okay? Anime is a huge influence. There's nothing wrong with anime. People like to shit on anime. And gosh, you like what you like, draw what you like. Anime has now become pop culture. It's become mainstream. And so it's really funny for me. When I was in college, actually, I had a teacher tell me that I would never get hired if I kept drawing anime. And like, yeah, maybe 20 years ago, but these days, I get hired because I draw anime. I get hired because I have that anime influence. And always take everything as that's being given as advice with a grain of salt. Okay? I sometimes people just mean the best. I'm meaning my best right now, but like maybe it don't work. Maybe it doesn't fit your situation. I try to just take everything with a grain of salt. Just because they said, oh, you shouldn't do anime, it's never gonna get you a job. That's a lie. That's a big fat lie. I know tons of people who say, just outside of animation even, there are so many people now on Instagram who can support their families and support themselves because they sell merchandise. It's of like anime, but of their own characters. When else is that going to be possible? Why not, right? It's uh, why do we hate on the things that people like, right? Like, so there's always like a discourse like, oh, no furry art, no animal, or no anime, no, I don't know, My Little Pony. I don't know. There's always things that people like to hate on. But if you like it, you should do it. If you enjoy it, you should do it. Part of your relationship with yourself is also like doing things that you enjoy, drawing things that you enjoy. You don't have to draw anime for work if you say you are in the creative field, but you should at least not feel guilty for drawing it, or even having that as like 90% of your Instagram. Okay, hold on, let me okay. How do you balance underworking versus overworking? Yes. That is a very, very good question, because when I was in college, fear was my biggest motivator. Fear was my biggest motivator, and it's not great. And so I would consistently overwork. But once I got out and landed my first job in animation, and I've told people this in the previous chat, but or the previous stream, that my first job in animation was not like actually in the animation industry. I was working for Primal Screen. I was hired as animator. I switched to an illustrator. I was working on animation, but I was not really influencing anything. I was really not creating anything. I was more like a pencil monkey. But so once I got into that job, underworking kind of did become a problem. Not at the job, but just in general, right? Because I was so used to being fueled by fear. I was so used to being fueled by like, uh, I'm running out of time, or oh my gosh, I have deadlines. Oh my gosh, this class. Oh my gosh, this schedule, right? That I didn't know how to balance, how to control my output. And that also goes into people who wait to like get into the flow of working, because the flow doesn't always come, but you need to know how to work, right? If you're hoping to do this as a profession, as a job, you need to know how to work even when you don't feel like it. And I would also like to dispel a misconception where if you work and do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. That's a lie, okay? Work is work. Even if you're in animation and it's fun work, it's still work. So it's always going to still take effort. Um, it doesn't really matter how much you you're appreciative of the job, or how passionate you are to be there. That's great, but work is always going to be work, and you need to then learn how to balance that. When you need to work, you can work. When you want to do stuff for fun, you can still do stuff for fun. And that is the whole point of separating also your self-worth from your art skills. If hold on, let me go back here. Uh real quick. Yeah, if you do find that you keep procrastinating, like say you're a student or someone just trying to get their art skills up, you keep procrastinating because things get in the way, or work gets in the way, or a job gets in the way outside of like art, if you're not in the art field already, or you keep telling yourself one day, one day, right? You do have to take a little bit of a hard look at yourself and ask yourself, do you really want this? Like, is this really, you say you really want it, and you say that you wish you could do this. But then when it comes down to taking time to actually do it, and you find yourself stalling, and you find yourself not wanting to do it, sometimes it's not just an issue of if you can do it and if you have the passion for it, but is it the right passion for you? Is it the right, some people I know only want to do drawing as a hobby, and that's okay. That's totally okay. You got to be honest with yourself where you think your connection with your art is. I have one friend who works, and he loves painting, okay? He loves painting, but he doesn't want to do it for work. He just wants to paint for himself when he has the time. And he then sells those paintings. But at the beginning, he just wanted to separate work from art. So he had a job. He had like a I don't know, like a tech job, normal job, and he worked that job. And he was satisfied though, because that was something that he didn't feel like he needed, but he just wanted to be able to paint when he wanted. So he would wake up at 5 a.m., go out painting, go out plein air painting, and he was super happy. I've never met a more content person in their life. So you also have to ask yourself the hard questions, which are is this the right path for you? Are you possibly only doing this because you see other people doing this? Um, if you really cannot get yourself to work, um, maybe it's okay to just keep it as a hobby, right? This is stuff that everyone should have to think about honestly for themselves at a time or a day. Um, if you teeter totter between underworking and overworking, I think that's pretty normal, but it shouldn't be super extreme. That will have to just, it goes into starting starting and stopping for yourself. It's very hard to underwork when you're in the job and doing stuff, because you just have to output. If you're a student and you're underworking, kind of think about the things I said about where it's like, is it for you? Is it because of outside sources? What is it that you want to do? Because I think that when people have a clear goal on what they do, they actually do become really motivated. They start drawing with intention. Because just drawing all the time isn't going to help. Drawing with intention is what does. Okay. Someone saying, I just can't see myself doing anything else, honestly. I want to be one of those cool artists one day known for their cool work. I think that's good. If you know that you really want to do this, then I'm also assuming that you're not going to give up so easily. And you shouldn't give up so easily. You should absolutely take that passion and go for it. For the longest time, my driving factor was that I wanted to be a feature viz dev artist at Disney. That was my driving factor. I went with it and I went gung ho with it. And it was only until later that I realized, okay, no, it's actually not that I want to work for Disney and be a feature film artist. It's that I wanted to work with the artists that were all doing feature film at the time at Disney. And now, like with that in mind, it became a little bit different. But I think that if you have a set goal for yourself and you have a general guideline for yourself, then you can start to make a pathway for yourself. And it's okay if it changes halfway. You just keep going on that pathway, right? It's not pathway is not one straight one. It's always going to curve a little bit. Sometimes you go a little bit off and then you come back in. It's just about your journey and where you want to go. If you want to be, you have an image of who you are. That's I think that's great. I think that is super important, especially when you're trying to discover who you are as an artist. Um okay. What do you do when you're paralyzed and overwhelmed by just how much there is to learn, how many paths you can take? Okay. So that happened to me when I came out of college. I graduated. I had a degree in animation and I hated animating. I was really at a loss for what I was supposed to do, for because I felt like I just had wasted 4 years of my life. Not true, but I felt like that, right? And so suddenly realizing that after graduating is not fun. It's very discouraging. It's very you question everything, and I was paralyzed for a little bit. I think I did putter around for a little bit. And like I said before, there's no quick fix, unfortunately, for all of this. This is always going to be a constant, hopefully, uphill battle for everyone, where we have so many parts that we just have to kind of slowly get better and better about. But sometimes thinking about things logically can help. And I think what really got me out of it is I looked at myself and I went, what makes me happy? And you have to be really honest with yourself here, okay? Sometimes job titles sound cool, but when you actually look at the work that they're doing, you go, no, I don't want to do that. It's not really my style, right? Some people are like, I just really like characters and I just want to do characters, but I don't want to do props. Then don't do props. Just do characters. Focus on that thing that you really want to do. Being a well-rounded artist is always going to be a growth thing, so you can always continue growing as an artist. If right now your passion is to become a character designer or to do something in animation, then try to set that as your goal. And I don't mean, sometimes I come across students who have this mentality of like, oh my God, I would be blessed just to work in animation. And like, I understand, right, where they're coming from, because I was like that too. But it doesn't always, it doesn't work like that. You should look at what positions are in animation, what positions are in TV, what positions are in feature. That type of stuff is actually easily accessible as long as you're looking for it. Everyone has a lot of their job titles up and around on Instagram. And with that, you can hopefully hone in on like, oh, okay, this person does storyboards and this person does character designs. Oh, I really want to be a character designer, right? And then you can then start making a logical path for yourself, being like, okay, if I'm a character designer, do I need to do anatomy? Yes. Do I need to have some coloring skills? Not as important, honestly. You can, but for the first go about, if you just need to improve your anatomy, then you have a pathway to continue going, right? And sometimes it it's helpful to talk to people that know you, or it's good to talk to people that are in your support group. Um, yes. Um, I I am going to let you guys know there is no shortcut for getting good. There's no shortcut. There's no quick trick, and then suddenly you can draw a human. It's all practice. It's all a trained uh skill set, right? I don't think that there's such thing as, oh, she's just more talented, or oh, she was just born with talent. It's not. It's literally, drawing is a repeated skill. The more you repeat it, the better you get, and the more you repeat it with intention, the even better that you get, right? Um, Someone's saying, my problem is I feel like I'm never ready for the industry. I'm always scared that my portfolio isn't good enough. I too always feel like that. I'm always questioning whatever I'm putting things out there, right? And that's the thing. No one's ever ready for the industry. Okay? But you're going to miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So it may not feel great, but I think if you have at least something to show, start putting it out there. Start updating your Instagram. Start letting yourself be as you are right now, okay? Cuz like say in a year or so, your art improves as well, because everyone's art improves in a year, okay? Everyone does, even if they don't see it. Everyone always improves. And like recruiters will see that, people will see that you're trying, and it's not always about what skill set you started with. It's about your personality. It's about your work ethic. People are more willing to work with people who are grounded, are willing to learn, versus a lone wolf artist who has a huge ego, has a huge skill set, is perfection at everything. People are actually less likely to work with them, because it's a team effort, right? Everyone's building on top of each other. You have to be able to work in a group. It's a lot about meeting people where they are, right? Yes, imposter syndrome is incredibly common. Even say my art director at Supercell, right? He still gets imposter syndrome. This is a dude who is amazing. He's worked on AAA games. He's working for like the #1 mobile game company, and he still has imposter syndrome. Okay, this is something that everyone faces for some reason, and knowing that everyone faces it kind of helps you get to it. And also, I've personally never been called out for being fake or not being a character designer. No one's ever, even if they were like trolling me or something, no one's ever done that to me. And so I think a lot of the fear for imposter syndrome is that someone will call you out, or someone will see you for what you aren't putting out there. And the thing is, like, logically, it doesn't make sense. If someone says, you're not an artist, you go, fuck that, I'm an artist. You know, and just trying to like remember that and keeping that in so that it keeps you grounded, so that you don't get too far caught up into, oh, I'm in imposter syndrome, right? Like we're all doing our thing, right? Yeah, fear of being exposed as a fraud. How can we be a fraud when we're doing the thing? People don't feel like they deserve the title of artist, and it's like, you're drawing, aren't you? You're an artist. It's what is everything else that's coming with it? Um, yeah, and if it's extremely strong, it's always good to talk to a psychologist because it may be something else outside of it. There's always a lot of influences on self-confidence and insecurities that may be trauma, or maybe something you have never been able to get out of your head. That's where I say, really go see a professional. It can help a lot. Medication helps a lot if your brain ain't working. All of that stuff. If you're really, really struggling, right? Because all of this talk that I'm telling you can really only help in a certain area. If you're already below in the red mentally, it would be good to see someone professional if you can. Okay, so I think we're at a pretty good point for stopping now. It's about hour 30. I hope you guys had a good experience with this talk. I hope that it was informative as well. I really just want everyone to realize that life is already hard enough as it is. Let's not make it any harder on ourselves. Let's be nicer to ourselves. We all need to thrive. We all need to succeed. There's plenty of jobs to go around. No one's in direct competition with each other. Let's just learn to exist and be happy. It is a very hard thing, but let's try. um so for the next stream, I will be streaming. So I might stream tonight because I feel like watercoloring. That would be like a watercolor with me. It's not on the Lightbox schedule. This is just something that I'm suddenly like, oh, it's Saturday. All of my friends are doing Lightbox. I think I'll stream a drawing, maybe. I can talk to people there about, like, you know, watercolor or art stuff. Or you guys can just watch me watercolor. For official stream though, tomorrow I am going to be doing a stream on how to keep a watercolor journal. I guess this could apply to Oso sketchbook, but I'm quite I love keeping watercolor sketchbook. I love like having different uh mediums to work with. Digital art is great, traditional art is great. They're all mediums. I like to use them all, right? If I am to watercolor tonight, just like a demo, I may do it at 5 or 5:30. I will let people know on Instagram. If you're subscribed, I think as a follower, it'll also tell you when I go online. If you guys are free, feel free. My stream for tomorrow though, the official one for Lightbox, is at 3 p.m. Oh no, I'm wrong. 1 p.m. 1 p.m. California time. Every one of my talks are recorded. I will upload them to my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel does not have a custom URL right now because apparently I need followers for that. And so if you just type in Amber Aki Huang, it should pop up. If not, I always update Instagram. I'm always telling people where to find me and everything. Yes. Yes, all of my talks will be recorded. Okay. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for joining. I hope it was helpful. I will see you guys in a little bit.